Hey hip hooray, hip hop 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 hop, hello, hello, true crimers. I don't know what that was. I am very sorry. Coming at you with another compilation video. This one is gonna have a whole lot of your favorite thing, no closure. These are, let's just say a bunch, I don't know the number, of missing persons stories that I told over on TikTok. So if by chance you see any of these videos and you have any information on any of them, please contact the appropriate local authorities. And yeah, you can do so anonymously, and you can be a hero and help a family find the person they are looking for, or provide information about what happened to them. All right, Mike, enough yapping. Before I go, make sure, I'm gonna do the rigmarole. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, hit the notification bell thingamajig. What else? What else is there? Oh, follow me on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram. It's all in my link tree below in the description. You can join my Discord if you want. Please be over the age of 18. Also in the link tree, I have merch. We sell t-shirts and hoodies and wine glasses and stuff. So we ship internationally. Oh, God. Is my sales pitch over? That's it, I think. I don't know. But anyway, here are just quite a few missing persons cases in TikTok format. I know your favorite. Shut up, Mike. Okay. Viewer discretion is... Hello, true crimerers. I do have a current missing persons to report. 17-year-old Mason Jenkins went missing on November 3rd, 2022 from St. Charles, Missouri, and he is 17 years old. There really isn't any other details other than that. I've been trying to look for some, but I can't see anything. Now, the report does say to do not approach him if you see him, but to just call 911 if you do. From what I've been reading in other comments, it's not necessarily because he poses a danger or a threat, but he may just not be mentally well right now, and so he may run if someone tries to approach him. So again, if you see Mason Jenkins, please contact the police immediately. You can, like it says here, you can call 911 or reach out to Trucks for Kids on Facebook. I'll also tag the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, as well, but that's all I got, unfortunately. By the way, folks, for right now, I'm going to be using TikTok mainly just for missing persons. My YouTube page is where I'll be posting my various other true crime content, but missing persons will be my focus for right now on this page, like current missing persons, like Mason here. All right, keep your eyes peeled, especially if you are in St. Charles, Missouri, or the surrounding areas. Thank you. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Tabbetha Kay Worford. Viewer discretion is advised. Tabbetha was a 19-year-old mother of I believe, 17-month-old baby at the time. She lived in Escambia County, Florida. The father of her baby was named Tim Reno. It sounds like they weren't a couple anymore at the time, but I'm not 100% positive on that because I can't find that information. There's very little detail about this case. She lived at the Fairfield Village Apartments, and this was on North Fairfield Road in Escambia County. At some point in the late evening of May 4th, 1990, someone had dropped her off at her apartments, and then from that point, she has never been seen again. She had just started a new job as a secretary, and she said she absolutely loved this job. She just moved into a brand new apartment, something she was super happy to have her independence. Inside of her apartment, there was no signs of a struggle. Everything was in its place. Nothing appeared to be stolen. Her glasses, all of her clothing, and money she had physically was all left behind in the apartment. What was missing, though, however, was her purse and her wallet, and she had just gotten her check for $160 from work. That check has never been cashed. Nobody nearby heard any signs of a struggle. They heard no screaming. They heard no one screaming for help. The one strange thing, however, is her bed was missing its sheets and pillowcases. And I have done enough of these true crime stories to know that a missing sheet with a missing person usually translates to something not good. But here is something crazier. At 2:30 in the morning at the same apartment complex, someone rang a doorbell to a neighbor. The neighbor never answered the door. But when that neighbor walked outside a couple hours later, on their doorstep was her baby in his car seat. So they believe that whoever dropped the baby off did so at 2:30 in the morning. Nobody knows why this apartment was chosen to drop the baby off. They had no connection to Tabbetha. They believe after she was dropped off that night, she had gotten into her apartment at some point. But over the course of a couple of hours that night, no one knows what happened. Again, it's just a case of someone just vanishing into thin air. Tim Reno, the father of the baby, is considered a suspect, but he has never been arrested. They don't know what a motive would have been. If you have any information, please call 850-436-9426. In just a 67-minute window of time, something happened to this young man after his car crashed. Was foul play involved? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Jason Landry. Viewer discretion is advised. Jason is a 21-year-old student from Texas State University. He grew up in a religious household. His father is actually a pastor, and he's just always been described as a really good guy. Well, on December 13th, 2020, it was time for the Christmas break. So he was going to leave school that day and go to his parents' place. So he left from his apartment in San Marcos, Texas, and then was going to go to Missouri City, Texas. Using cell phone information, they can confirm he left his house about 10:55 p.m. Just a little after midnight, a volunteer firefighter in the area just so happened to be driving down Salt Flat Road near Luling, Texas. Resting against a tree was a car, and it looked like it had been in some kind of accident. This was taken well after the fact, but you can see that there was some pretty severe damage to the back of the car. When police arrived, they were able to confirm the car belonged to a Mr. Landry in Texas. It was Jason's father. He was the registered owner of this car. So they contact his father at about 2 o'clock in the morning to let him know they just found their son's car. But Jason, their son, he wasn't there. He wasn't anywhere in the surrounding area. More concerning, they found some stuff like 100 or so feet away from the car crash. They found Jason's backpack, and then farther down the road, they found his clothes. They found his shirt, his shorts. They even found his underwear, and it had a tiny spot of blood on them. So Jason appears to have taken all of his clothes off, or someone took them off for him. And he is now just walking around nude. Zooming in on the tag for his shorts, they see another spot of blood. Now, there is no blood found in the car. They can see the tracks where he would have swerved off onto the road. So what they believe happened is that he tried to correct the car, and then the car somehow swerved and the back of the car smashed into a tree, and then it kind of just came to a rolling stop against another tree. But the accident didn't appear to have caused any bodily injuries because there's no blood in the car. Sure, his head could have been affected, of course. In his backpack, they did also find some drug paraphernalia, just, stuff for weed. So they thought, okay, maybe he was high and he was driving and that caused the accident. Okay, great. But where the hell is Jason then? Was he dealing with a concussion? Was he high out of his mind? Was he drunk? What? Why was he? Did he just stumble in the field nearby? Well, they didn't really look for him. Nor did the police collect any of the evidence, because the next day when his father went to the crash site, his clothes were still on the ground in the road. They didn't collect them. They just left everything as it was, and they didn't actually search for him that night. He's just a young college kid, high out of his mind. He's probably he found somewhere or whatever. So basically, his family would intervene, and they would actually get them to do a search for him, and they searched everywhere. They even drained a nearby pond completely to see if maybe he had fallen in and drowned, but nothing. He was not there. They searched all of the open fields, the entire area where his car was, but no sign of him. No blood, nothing. He wasn't admitted into any local hospitals or urgent cares. His cell phone was found tucked between the driver's seat and the console, because, it always falls in there, right? They found images, which police released actually pretty recently. So Jason took this picture that night, and he appears to be happy. He's smiling, and because you can tell he's wearing the same shirt that they found on the road. Well, okay, so they then look into his cell phone data. At 11:05, he drives onto Highway 80. 11:07, he is still driving south on Highway 80. At 11:11, he is now near Martindale. At 11:15, he passes over the SH 130 on Highway 80. At 11:24, he enters Luling, Texas. At that point, he opens Snapchat, and then he passes through an intersection at Magnolia Avenue and East Austin Street. They believe he was supposed to turn left at that sign, but instead he missed it and he went straight through, which would bring him to the Salt Flat Road. And then his cell phone data stops. And then at 12:31 a.m., his car is found. So what happened in that 67-minute window of time between when his cell phone stopped with the data and when his car was found? Well, it's not known. No one knows. At one point, police tried to offer the suggestion that, well, there are wild hogs in the area, so perhaps he was eaten by hogs. Okay. But no trace of him. No blood, hair, bones, nothing. His family just wants them to look at this like a possible foul play type thing. Maybe he ran into someone with regards to the drugs in his car and something happened. Maybe it was an accident, but where the hell is he? The sheriff's department was like, nope, this is just an accident. Private investigators are like, well, you should probably look at this like a possible foul play scenario, right? How does this guy, he's 6'1", 170 pounds, how does he just vanish into thin air in a matter of an hour and 7 minutes? Yeah, maybe there was an accident and something happened with his brain. But why is there no trace of him anywhere? If he got hurt on his own accord and he fell and died somewhere, why haven't they found him? We're getting close to 2 years now. And why won't the sheriff's department just give the foul play theory any credence? You should be investigating any and all possible angles to just make sure you're clearing and reaching all your bases, right? I don't know. I feel very iffy on this one. The fact that he's just never been found, to me, that's what suggests possible foul play in my book. Was he meeting someone in this little stretch of road? Because it's kind of like just a dirt road. Did he run into someone in that area? Was he killed and then his car was purposely crashed to stage something and then his clothes were thrown everywhere to throw people off? Y'all, I got nothing. I don't know. My gut tells me something nefarious happened. I don't know. That's just what it's telling me. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Jason Landry or what happened that night, please contact 281-309-9500. You can also call the sheriff's office at 512-398-6777 and perhaps help give this family some kind of closure. By the way, there was a unconscious man who was found in New York who looked a hell of a lot like Jason, but they confirmed it was not him. In case you had seen that somewhere before, it's definitely not him. So hopefully one day this will be closed and he'll be found. This is yet another story of a person being there and then gone. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Kirsten Brueggeman. Viewer discretion is advised. Kirsten was a 27-year-old, and actually she was just a couple of weeks shy of turning 28. She lived with her parents in Lawrence, Indiana. And these are her parents, and then over here is her dog. She is a humongous lover of animals, especially dogs. And she loved her little baby there very, very much. Her folks would say that Kirsten definitely had, her own, problems here and there. She was recently kind of becoming an alcoholic, and then she, I guess, didn't want to continue seeing the therapist about it. She had been working at a local pizza place, and, everything was just pretty much going normal at this point. On New Year's Day, 2021, Kirsten had gone into work. Normally, she gets rides from her parents, and she told her mom that night that she was actually going to be going out with friends after work, so she did not need to pick her up. Her mom, Lisa, had texted her around 12:30 or so in the morning because she still hadn't come home, and she was just wondering where she was, but she got no response, no phone calls, nothing. Later that next day, she called Kirsten's work to see if she had gone in, but when she called around 3 o'clock, they said no, she was a no-show, which is very unlike her. She would always call if she wasn't going to make it in. Her parents would find out that the night before, after work, she went to a place called the Irish Mutt with her on-again, off-again boyfriend Eddie and a couple other friends. When Eddie found out that Kirsten was missing, he went out himself looking everywhere, retracing steps, but he couldn't find any sign of her. January 3rd, they call police, report her missing, and then a detective is assigned to the case. On January 4th, the family themselves, they go around searching the area to see if they can find her anywhere. Maybe articles of clothing, maybe her cell phone, anything. But they come up with nothing. Police would obtain CCTV footage, and they found Lisa walking on her own sometime around 1:59 a.m. She is seen walking right across the street from the Abbey Apartments. At approximately 2 a.m., she's seen in another portion of the parking lot, and then she is seen bending over to pick something up. And then the video glitches, and it goes from 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m., and then she's just gone. And that's the last sighting of her. There has been no trace of her ever since. If you have any information, please contact 317-327-6160. Where is Dorien Thomas? This is a question that still has no answer. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Dorien Dion Thomas. Viewer discretion is advised. Dorien was born on May 6, 1989, and he lived in Amarillo, Texas. He was described as a very streetwise kid. First of all, he loved being outdoors. He especially loved riding his bike. It was one of his favorite pastimes. He was always seen around the neighborhood riding his bike, and he was always saying hi to everyone. Very friendly, very outgoing kid. Now, in August of 1997, Dorien experienced a little bit of trauma because he was one of 3 kids who, in a park, discovered the body of Gloria Ann Covington. She was a known prostitute in the area, and she was just dumped in the middle of a park where kids play. They had to see this body, and she was stabbed to death. Approximately 1 month after that, this woman, Linda Gale Jackson, was also murdered. The last time she was seen alive was near a pickup truck, and that pickup truck was the exact same one that was seen near Gloria Covington before she was murdered. Now let's fast forward to September of 1998. This all comes together. A woman that was friends with Dorien's mother, she had been attacked by an unknown man. And the friend would run to Dorien's apartment where her friend was. Dorien was also there, and when she finally got in the apartment, the assailant was right there, and he actually locked eyes with Dorien. This man was described as a guy with greasy, slicked back, ponytailed red hair, but he would end up running away. It's believed he was also driving a pickup truck very similar to the ones that were seen towards our other 2 victims. And then a month after that incident, on October 26, 1998, Dorien gets his bike all set up, and he's going to go ride around the neighborhood, and he wanted to go purchase some snacks at a nearby convenience store, something he did all the time. He was wearing a red shirt, he had on blue jeans, But like minutes after he left the neighborhood, he was never seen again. There has been no sign of him. Not even his bike has been found. He was reported missing within that 24-hour period, and police eventually would become kind of suspicious of the fact that this assailant who attacked his mom's friend, who had seen Dorien in the house, could that person have also been the same person to kill the other two women? Dorien did find one of the women's bodies. So there's speculation that for some reason this guy targeted Dorien because of how connected he was to some of the other incidences. Or it could be completely unrelated. They do believe he met with foul play, but he would look like this today if alive. Okay, yeah. Happy October, true crimerers. Here's my new October profile picture. It's not top quality, but, you know, I'm not an artist, all right? Now, I covered a ton of Halloween-related cases last year, so I don't really have much on my list. I have like 3 or 4 left, so I'll cover all of those throughout the month, starting with this one. This is the case of Kristi Lynn Vorak. Viewer discretion is advised. Kristi Lynn was born on October 21st, 1969, and she lived the brief amount of time that her life was in Tacoma, Washington. She was described as a pretty outgoing girl, pretty feisty, and not someone who, like, shied away from strangers. Now, in 1982, she was living with a foster family. And on Halloween night, 1982, she would walk out of her foster home, and her family would never see her again. She was not known to ever be a runaway. She was not known to have ever been involved in, like, prostitution, anything untowards, and that comes up later. That's why I said it. It was reported later on that some witnesses claimed they saw Kristi at a bus station near Seattle. That, however, has never been confirmed and has never been proven by anyone. But that is literally the extent of her case. Kristi Lynn Vorak fell off the face of the earth. Neither she or her body or her personal belongings that she had on her that night, they've never been found. Not a trace. Nothing. The reason why I brought up the prostitution thing earlier is because of this. Hot diggity fuck dog. Jesus. Why does Gary Ridgway look like that dude from Sesame Street? Right? Am I right? I'm right. Oh, Jesus. Oh, I'm so sorry. So to those who don't know, this is Gary Ridgway. He is a horrible monster piece of shit. He's also known as the Green River Killer. He would primarily pick up and murder prostitutes and just, I guess, women who really had no close ties to anyone or anything. People that wouldn't be missed, I guess, is what he thought. He would later be identified as the Green River Killer. It would be decades after his murder started, and he would be convicted of at least 48 of those murders. Now, people claim they saw Gary Ridgway's truck driving around the area near that bus depot where Kristi was seen. The truck looked just like this. So Kristi disappeared in 1982, and it would not be until May of 1993 that she was placed on the probable victims list of the Green River Killer. This was well before he was ever caught. Now, Gary Ridgway confessed to many of these murders he committed. He was asked about Kristi, and he said he had no memory of her. He did not confess to killing her. He claims he does not recognize her. That doesn't mean anything because the man murdered a lot of women, way more than the 48 he was convicted of. But without any confession from Gary Ridgway, without any physical evidence that she's even been killed, even though it is likely that she was killed, they can't really physically link her to him at all. Her family does still hold to a little bit of hope that maybe she is alive. Maybe she ran away, and this is what she would have looked like around in her mid-40s or so. But this image has been out there for for a very long time, and no one has ever claimed to recognize her. No witness sightings. Again, nothing about her, no traces of her have ever been found. Was she a victim of the Green River Killer? It's possible. She was in the exact area where he was murdering people, and at the same exact time he was murdering people. So yeah, it's entirely possible, even probably likely. But the sad truth is the world may never know. And that's an even worse crime, in my opinion. 30 miles off the coast of Mexico, a woman aboard a cruise ship would just vanish into thin air. Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Annette Mizener. Viewer discretion is advised. Annette was a mother of 4, including 2 children who had been recently adopted before the story, and the family lived in Wisconsin. In December of 2004, Annette and her 17-year-old daughter were on a Carnival cruise, and Annette's parents were also with them. On the evening of December 4th, 2004, and this is towards the end of the cruise, and roughly 30 miles off the coast of Ensenada in Mexico, about 120 miles away from San Diego, Annette was expected to meet her parents to play bingo, and she had to walk through a casino to get there. And Annette was actually witnessed at 9:30 p.m. near the casino itself, but she never made it to the bingo game. And a little after 10 p.m. that night, her parents became concerned because she hadn't shown up, they hadn't heard from her, they didn't know where she was. Shortly after 10:15 p.m. or so, one of the ship crew members found Annette's purse. It was like a beaded purse, and it was just lying on the ground. The purse appeared to be broken because it was missing some beads. It was found near a railing towards a lower deck. Now, Annette's parents say that she would not go down to this deck on her own accord because it was a deck for smokers, and she was very, very much anti-smoking. But obviously it's not impossible. She could have certainly gone down there on her own. Now, where the purse was found, there was a security camera pointing right at it. But this one security camera, which would have captured what happened with the purse, it was covered up with a map of the cruise ship. Like crinkled up and like placed on the camera. That's a little fishy. They then found the beads that had been broken off the purse in a different location, kind of close to this though. Now, for some reason, it took the cruise ship captain 3 hours to initiate a search, like a formal search for her. And this was only because the Coast Guard had requested it. They searched the waters for about 16 hours. And they searched over 800 square miles, but found no one and nothing. Some people thought, well, maybe she was drunk and fell off. They proved that she only had about 2 drinks that entire day. There were also crew members who were whispering her name, kind of weirdly and secretly. They also found a little bit of blood near where the beads were found, but the FBI has never tested it. In fact, they're barely even investigating this at all. She was declared dead in 2005, but no one seems to care about her other than her own family. You know, it's already insane enough when one person vanishes off the face of the earth. But 3? Hello, true crimeers. This is the disappearances of Linda McCord and Kimberly and Sarah Boyd. Viewer discretion is advised. So, on the night of April 3rd, 1987, Sarah Boyd and her 2-year-old daughter Kimberly were out with a friend, Linda McCord. They had attended a concert in Waltersboro, South Carolina, and this was over sometime, I think, around 10 o'clock. The 3 of them were last seen leaving the concert and getting into their blue Lincoln around or between 10:30 and 11 p.m. that night. A car similar to this. They were heading back to their home, which was in Orangeburg, South Carolina. A few witnesses saw the 3 people inside of the blue vehicle driving down the Route 15. These witnesses noticed another car following somewhat closely behind them, but the witnesses did not really get a good look at who was in that vehicle or if it even had anything to do with this case. Now, at midnight, now we're technically into April 4th, 1987, Sarah's husband got home from work. And when he got home, he noticed that his wife and daughter weren't there. He was a little concerned, but he thought to himself, well, maybe they just spent the night over at their friend's house, or maybe they're just running late. This is before cell phones, so they really couldn't check in perfectly. But when his wife and 2-year-old daughter were not home by 6 or 7 the following morning, he called police and reported them missing. He also discovered that Linda McCord was also missing. On April 5th, 1987, their blue Lincoln was found on this road. It was at the intersection of Highways 15 and 176. The car looked like it had been worked on, or something broke in the car, so it was pulled over to the side. So there was no sign of the trio, of course, but they weren't sure if maybe this is why the car was stopped and then something happened then, or if maybe something happened and then someone staged it to look like this. But the trio has never been found and has never been seen since. Something very strange, though. In 1990, a couple of years after this happened, somebody used Sarah Boyd's credit card and they signed their name with incredibly illegible writing. It was like scribbled, but no one knows who it was. There was no camera footage or anything. Police do believe they met with foul play, but they have almost nothing to go on. This is the last known image of a woman from Indiana before she disappeared forever. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Dawnita Wilkerson. Viewer discretion is advised. Dawnita was a 44-year-old, happy-go-lucky, kind, just loving mother of 6 children from Indiana. On June 20th, 2020, she left her brother's home in Evansville because she had actually been living with him for, just a few weeks. But after that, none of her family or friends ever saw her again. So her family would report her missing because she had 6 kids and she would never do anything like this. Just pick up and leave. The police had found out that Dawnita was actually at a motel on at least the morning of June 21st, because at 8:16 a.m. there are images of her near the hotel, or at the hotel. She is seen inside the building. I'm not sure if she's checking in or checking out or what she's doing here, but the cameras did pick her up. And then a little while later, she is then seen leaving the motel. This is her caught on camera leaving the room she was at. And then she is seen getting into this 2004 silver Chevrolet Suburban vehicle. The following day, her cell phone was powered off. And this right here is the last time that anyone reported seeing Dawnita ever again. It has now been over 2 years and there has been no sightings of her. Her bank accounts have not been used. Her cell phone was never turned on or used again. Now, Dawnita had a on-again, off-again relationship with a very abusive boyfriend. And in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she was physically telling people, I am afraid for my life. I think he's going to do something to me. As a matter of fact, if something happens, it's this person. She reportedly told some friends that the morning she was last seen, she was with this person and she was afraid. Now, the owner of the 2004 vehicle was apparently found, but refuses to cooperate with police. And without any hard evidence or any kind of proof that she's dead, they can't just force the people to talk to them. To my knowledge, they've also questioned this boyfriend, but apparently nothing has come from it because no one's been arrested. There has been very little movement on this case in general. And Dawnita Wilkerson is just gone. And that's not possible, like I always say. Someone knows what happened to her. Where is she? Hello, true crimerers. This is the missing persons case of Erin Pospisil. Viewer discretion is advised. Pictured here is the Pospisil family, and they lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. In 2001, Erin was 15 years old. By all accounts, Erin was just your normal American teenage girl. She had plenty of friends, and she was described as just a pretty outgoing young lady. On Sunday, June 3rd, 2001, at approximately 8:45 p.m., Erin would be leaving her home to go to her friend Brittany's house to just hang out, watch some movies, eat popcorn, you know. They had just started summer vacation, and this was kind of how they were gonna kick it off. Pictured here was Curtis Paget. He was a friend of Erin's older brother. That same night, he was at their house hanging out with the brother, so he said, you know what, I'm leaving, I can just drive you to Britt's house for you, and Erin said, okay. So the last time that any of Erin's family sees her is when she's getting into Curtis's truck. Everything that happens from that point moving forward is according to him. So, according to Curtis, they got to the friend's house, and when Erin got out to knock on the door, nobody answered. Apparently, Britt was still out getting snacks and that she would be back shortly. This is when it gets weird to me personally. According to Curtis, a vehicle described as a early 90s Chevy Cavalier pulled up in front of Britt's house. Erin allegedly recognized the people in the car. She went up to speak to them, and Curtis did not know what they were talking about. Erin then says, they're going to give me a ride. And then she gets in the car, and then it takes off. And then Curtis leaves. My question is, they're going to give me a ride where? She was already at her destination, her friend Britt's house. Where is she getting a ride to then? Back home? Why? From that point, no one saw Erin ever again. If she was killed for some reason, her body has never been found. Police speculated that possibly she was a runaway. Okay, maybe. But she took nothing with her. Literally nothing. And there has been virtually no confirmed sightings of her ever. How does a 15-year-old girl just fall off the face of the earth like that? One article I was reading was talking about Curtis Paget. He was bullied immensely in school. This is him years later. He came back into the picture in about 2007 or so when a neighbor of his was murdered. He claims he saw the man who was murdered just 2 days prior. Now, that murder remains unsolved. Curtis was kind of described as someone who was bullied who then became a bully. I'm having a hard time buying the story of, they'll give me a ride. This is what she would look like if she was alive now. What happened to Erin? This is all that was ever found of a 9-year-old girl who just vanished into thin air. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Asha Degree. Viewer discretion is advised. Asha was born on August 5th, 1990 in Shelby, North Carolina. She had a brother, and her parents were very hardworking people that gave the two kids a very loving, very stable household. By the time Asha was 9 years old, her mother would say that she was very self-aware for someone her age, that she was very wary of strangers. You know, that she knew to not approach people she did not know. Asha was a very outgoing, very bubbly young girl. She was always smiling, but one night that would all be gone. The Degree family lived here down this street, and on February 14th, 2000, around 8 p.m., the parents had put both kids to bed, who shared the same room. Shortly after midnight, there was a car accident in the neighborhood that actually caused a power outage throughout the entire neighborhood. So sometime shortly after that, Asha's father went into the kids' room just to make sure they were okay, and both children were in there. Sometime around 2:30 or 3 in the morning, Asha's brother woke up saying that he thought he heard some movement on her bed, but he didn't really know what it was. The next morning, around 6 o'clock, the family woke up and they realized that Asha was not in her bed. She was not anywhere in the house. She was nowhere outside on the street. Asha was gone. So they reported her missing right away, and the authorities got there within moments. The police investigated the house thoroughly and realized there was no forced entry. There was no mysterious shoe prints. There was no fingerprints from anyone who wasn't a family member in the house. They did notice, however, that Asha's book bag was missing, almost as if she took it herself and left on her own accord. A theory that was backed up pretty quickly by 2 different witnesses. After Asha's story was put on the news, these 2 witnesses came forward to say the same thing. These 2 witnesses had no relation to each other, but they both saw Asha right around the same time. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, one of them said they saw her with her book bag on, right in this area off the highway. The gentleman got out of the car to approach her to see if she needed help, and then she bolted into the nearby woods. And then from that point, no one saw her again. A day after that, they found Asha's hair bow in a nearby shed. A year and a half later, Asha's book bag was found, and it was found 30 miles away from her home. In it was a New Kids on the Block shirt and a copy of McElligot's Pool. One witness said they thought they saw her next to a car that looked like this. Inmates would come forward to say, "Oh, I killed her," but those were never proven. And that's it. She's never been found. A man suspected of a kidnapping may have eaten all of the evidence, including the body. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Zachary Xerxes Ramsay. That's a cool name. Viewer discretion is advised. Zachary was a 10-year-old boy who lived in Great Falls, Montana with his mother and siblings. He was a good kid, well-behaved. He had some trouble. A month prior to this story, he had run away from home, but he called his mom within hours for her to pick him up. On February 6, 1996, he would leave his home to start walking to school. And this was right around 7:30 in the morning. But Zachary, he never got to Witter School, the school he attended. The school would actually call his mother to say, "Hey, he didn't come to class and what's going on?" So she goes into panic mode and starts looking for him, but she can't find him, so the police are called and he's reported missing. A witness would come forward that said they saw Zachary at approximately 7:45 a.m. And it's believed that he was trying to get away from a man. The Penguin without makeup, Nathaniel Barr Jonah. This dude was a fucking creep. Nathaniel was a child predator in the area. He had previously been arrested for and convicted of attempted abductions of children, possible sexual assault of young boys. He was convicted in Massachusetts. He had issues in Montana, but somehow he was still roaming the world freely. A neighbor stated that around 7:45 a.m., they saw Nathaniel going in an alleyway after Zachary. It appeared that Zachary was trying to get away, but then the next thing they know, he was no longer there down the alleyway. Police believe he used a taser to tase Zachary and render him unconscious. Now, he is suspected in numerous child abduction cases and other crimes involving children. So police believe that he definitely kidnapped Zachary and probably sexually assaulted and, well, oh God, Jesus. He bragged about being a cannibal. He said he eats people. So they believe he may have eaten the young boy. Police charged him with kidnapping and murder of Zachary. But Zachary's mother believed that he is still alive somewhere, and so she wouldn't testify against Nathaniel. There's been no sign of him ever again. He has vanished. He died of a blood clot in prison, so now we will never know. Falling off the face of the earth, diving into a dark, endless void and vanishing forever cannot be possible, correct? But sometimes I feel like it's the only explanation. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of April Susanne Wiss. Viewer discretion is advised. April was born on September 1st, 1983, and she lived in Wichita, Kansas. April was described as a very rebellious teenager. She really wanted to be independent and on her own. Her mom would say that she did not want to abide by and live by, the rules set in place. Like the rules of life, I guess. April just did not like living at home. She didn't have this awful relationship with her mother or anything like that. She just really wanted to be out on her own. And when she was 16 years old, to kind of help maybe push her along a little bit, April's mom agreed to let her stay with a friend of the mom's. at like a nearby apartment complex. Someone that I suppose the mom knows very well. So April was living with this family friend here at the Riverwalk Apartments in Kansas. And by all accounts, she was actually really enjoying this and, loving the independence. On the evening of January 11th, 2000, she was last seen leaving her apartment around 10 p.m., and this was allegedly seen by a friend. This is a time when people still used pagers, so she had her pager on her. She also had her key to the apartment, she had her wallet, but she left behind roughly $150. She had literally just baked a cake, which was fresh in the kitchen, she left behind. She left behind all of her clothing and belongings. She did not appear that she was going to be stepping out for very long because the lights and TV were still on. But after 10 p.m. that night, she has never been seen since. She has not used her pager. Her social security number has not been used for any purposes. There is no record of her anywhere. No trace. Here's the strangest thing about her disappearance. From what I understand, she was going to be testifying in a statutory sexual assault case. I don't know if she was the victim or if she was a witness on behalf of the victim. But she was scheduled to be a witness at this trial just 2 days after she disappeared. Police have not been able to connect it directly with that, but they can't rule it out either. Now, allegedly, she was not looking forward to testifying and she really didn't want to do it, but she was going to have to do it, essentially. To me, the timing is really weird. It's really strange that, and this is a big deal, like a statutory case like that, it's serious. So to just up and vanish just a couple of days before her testimony, to me, that just seems very, very fishy. Especially since there's been absolutely no signs of her ever again. No witness sightings, nothing. A person cannot just poof and just evaporate into thin air. They have to physically be somewhere. And people will have to, at some point, see these people. Unless they were likely killed and then disposed of somewhere. Her mom strongly suggests that April was possibly kidnapped by, human sex traffickers. Obviously, there's no direct proof of that. It's just speculation, but it could make sense. Or again, she was taken out by whoever the bad guy was for the case she was testifying in. But it's just super odd to me that a person is just gone like that. Somewhere, someone out there knows what happened to April Wiss. Maybe that someone is you. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Wendy Khan. Viewer discretion is advised. In June of 2018, Wendy Khan was living here in this home in Mankato, Michigan. She was living there with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Mohammed Chugtai. I may have said his last name wrong. So, according to Wendy's daughter, Anissa, the relationship had been back and forth over the years. It included Wendy moving out of state a few times, but eventually moving back to Michigan to live with Mohammed. Mohammed has a very shaky history with the law. This mainly included domestic violence issues against previous girlfriends or women in his life. However, there was never any reports that he was violent towards Wendy, but her daughter does believe that likely she was being abused by him. The 46-year-old mother was last seen on June 1st, 2018. She had accompanied her adult daughter to a doctor's appointment, they had lunch, and then the two of them went back into Wendy's home and were just having a conversation. Mohammed then walks into the house, looks at Anissa and says, "Please get out of the house now or I will call the police," which was just a very shocking thing to hear from him. Considering she wasn't doing anything wrong, she was just there talking to her mom. The very next day, Anissa texts her mom. She even talks to her over the phone so she hears her voice. Anissa said, "Hey, let's, want to hang out again, have some lunch." And Wendy said, "No, you should probably just go hang out with your friends." June 2nd, the next day, she tries contacting her mother again. This time, she gets no response. No text messages, does not answer the phone. So on June 3rd, she goes to her mother's house, knocks on the door, nobody answers, and the car is gone. So she is reported missing. On June 7th, Wendy's vehicle is found parked behind a CVS, and the tire has been slashed. Now, it's important to note that pretty much all of Wendy's belongings, except for her purse and cell phone, were left behind. She brought no clothing with her. She even left her animals behind, her animals that she loved dearly. The very last time she had any activity on her bank or credit accounts was the last day she was seen, by her daughter. Her cell phone has had no usage whatsoever. A month later, Mohammed sells the house because it was his home. He leaves his car behind. He leaves everything behind. He doesn't even collect the sales of the house. And then he just dropped off the face of the earth. He's never been seen or heard from since. Police were then able to search the home from top to bottom that they lived in, and they found absolutely no evidence of foul play. And just like Wendy, there is no record of him using his debit or credit card since the last day he was seen. There's no record of him renting an apartment or home, no record of his social security number being used. So now you have two people who have fallen off the face of the earth. Where's Wendy? A young boy vanishes from a mall that he has never seen entering. Hello, true crimeers. This is the disappearance of Dewan Sims. Viewer discretion is advised. Dewan was a 4-year-old boy who lived in Livonia, Michigan with his mother Dawnita and her boyfriend. His biological father was still very much in the picture. Everyone described the household as being a very loving home. He usually got the things he wanted. He was always seen just sort of bouncing around, being happy and smiling. There were absolutely no allegations of any kind of abuse in the home, and he meant the world to his mother, Dawnita. On December 11th, 1994, Dawnita was going around running some errands around town. She did not want to leave Dewan with her boyfriend because her boyfriend was actually asleep at the time they left, so she just brought him along. She actually had to pick Dewan up from the babysitter's house around 10 o'clock that morning. Then they drove to their house where the boyfriend was sleeping, and then they went about the errands. Dawnita claims they went to a laundromat where they were there for a couple of hours, and she said that Dewan was sitting down watching cartoons. They then went back to their house to drop off the laundry, got back in the car, and headed to the Wonderland Mall. So according to Dawnita, they walked into a corridor and she was about to go into the Target, but she noticed it was super busy, so she decided to pass. They then walked past a toy store where Dewan stopped to look inside. His mother, who was not holding his hand, she said she did that because it made him feel more independent. She had not realized he stopped, and so she continued to walk forward. Then she notices he's not next to her, so she turns around and looks at the toy store, and he's not outside of it. She walks inside. He's not there. She then searches the entire mall. She searches the parking lot. She says she searches on her own for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then she walks up to security, tells them what happened. They all begin searching the same areas. They can't find him. Then the police are called. Police do a search. They can't find anything. While the investigators are out searching around the area, they're also combing through CCTV footage of the mall, and something shocking comes up. They see Dawnita enter the mall, but Dewan is not with her. She's also seen on camera entering the mall hours after she said she did, and the cameras allegedly pick her up walking straight to security and reporting him missing. They looked through every camera of every store during the entire time. It took them days, but not one time does Dewan show up on camera. So therefore, Dawnita immediately becomes a suspect. Police determined that there is absolutely no way she walked around the entire mall looking for him. One, because she's never seen on camera doing it, and two, the timeline just doesn't work out. They go to the laundromat where she says she was earlier that day. The TV there only had a couple of channels on it. She had stated that Dewan was sitting down watching cartoons. So police go back to the laundromat and they determine something kind of strange. During the time that Dawnita says she was there, where Dewan was watching cartoons, the TV they had only had a few channels. Not one of them showed any cartoons, ever. She says that she cannot explain that. Police would bring her in for a polygraph test. As a matter of fact, she took 2. She did fail both. Keep in mind that she is a very distraught mother at the time, and she's being given polygraph tests under the cloud of suspicion and also fearing for her child's safety. This is why polygraph tests aren't used in court. and they don't account for the person's mental health status at the time. She also can't explain why they never see him on camera. That is kind of a big deal, you know. Police are given tons of tips, but none of them lead to anything. His biological father is completely ruled out. They determined that his alibi at the time was rock solid. They proved it without a doubt. He was nowhere in the area. As far as I know, the boyfriend was questioned, and I think they ruled him out as well. Several years ago, a man on Facebook claimed that he thought he may be D1 Sims. He was going all over the Facebook page for D1 saying, "I'm him, I think I'm him." So they eventually got DNA from him, and for some reason it took like weeks for them to get back, but they were confirmed that it was not D1 Sims. So he still hasn't been found. It's an interesting case because witnesses do recall seeing D1 with his mother in the morning. I don't know if they've questioned people from the laundromats and if they determined whether or not that he was there with his mother, but all they really have is proof that he never entered the mall when she says he did. You know, it's it's bizarre, it's strange. You know, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the mom. Because, like I said, there's no history of any kind of violence in the family. There's no child abuse allegations. She seemed to be a very loving mom, and he adored his mother. You know, he was a very happy child. The family was great. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But the footage, I mean, she is caught in a lie that he did not enter the mall with her. She entered the mall far later than she said she did. But it's also easy to mistake time. So, I don't know. I'm very torn on this one. Dawnita did pass away in 2020. She suffered a heart attack. And she never found out what happened to her boy. If she was the cause of his disappearance, she took that information to her grave. If she was not the cause, she went there never knowing. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Adam Herrman. Viewer discretion is advised. Adam was born on June 8th, 1987, and he lived in Kansas. He had two younger siblings, and the three of them were actually adopted when he was about 2 years old. There were apparently issues with the biological parents, but they were adopted by Douglas and Valerie Herrman. The family lived in a mobile home neighborhood in Towanda, Kansas. And during the Super Bowl of January 1999, friends who were over there for the Super Bowl party that they were having, well, they noticed something very odd. Adam was handcuffed to the bathtub. Something that later down the road, the adopted parents said, yeah, that's true. They claimed that a psychiatrist told them to handcuff him to something in the home because Adam was a dangerous child potentially. He was potentially suffering from schizophrenia, perhaps bipolar disorder. This is information given by the adopted parents, by the way. The mother, Valerie, was known to be kind of abusive towards the kids, especially Adam. One time she took a belt to him and they took Adam away from them for about 2 days. But after that January Super Bowl party in 1999, no one ever saw Adam again. But no one reported him missing for 9 years. According to his two siblings, the parents told them that he was given back to adoptive services. But they were still taking the money for Adam, $700 a month. By the time all of this came about, they had taken in about $15,000 in his name. They also continually claimed him on their taxes. When friends and family called to try to speak to Adam, they would say either he's not here anymore, and then eventually they just stopped responding to those calls. So it wouldn't be until 2008, but a missing persons report was created. The parents would say, like he just ran away and he just never came back. But somehow they also just didn't care that he ran away, I guess. Right, okay. They had lies coming from every direction about where Adam was, but none of them were true. Police would search the mobile home the family had lived in at the time, but came up with nothing. They dug up areas to see if perhaps maybe his body was buried. Nothing. It seems obvious that he was met with foul play and then was disposed of, but There's no physical proof of any of that. They did go to prison for several months for fraud, for taking all the money, but no criminal charges have ever been pressed. He died in 2016, she's still alive. He was just waiting at a bus stop to go home, and then never seen again. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Kevin Andrew Collins. Viewer discretion is advised. Kevin, pictured over there on the far right, was the 7th of 9 children. The family lived in the San Francisco, California area. Yes, quite a large family, but by all accounts, it was a completely normal family. A lot of love to go around. The parents were amazing towards their kids. Kevin was described as being both energetic, but also super shy. On the late afternoon of February 10th, 1984, Kevin would go to his school for a basketball practice, something he would normally do with his older brother. But that day, his brother was sick, so he stayed home. The practice lasted a few hours, and Kevin, being shy, was too embarrassed to ask either a friend or a coach to drive him home, so he went to the bus stop right down the street from the school. At some point between 6:30 p.m. and 7 p.m., Kevin was seen at the bus stop by a couple of people. People said that they saw the young boy next to a tall blonde man who had a black dog with him. And then, Kevin never got home. Kevin never got on the bus. Kevin was never seen again. The family obviously knew something was wrong, and they immediately would report him as missing. Now, this happened in a weird chunk of time when the Adam Walsh story was still relatively new, but also the Amber Alert system was not in play yet. So the police didn't have all of the tools that they have now. The family ended up having to do a lot of their own legwork, meaning they had to make a bunch of posters and get them everywhere. Not only did they distribute posters, but they also had billboards with his face on them, and also he was one of the very first children to be featured on a milk carton. A kind of interesting fact about this is that the missing poster for Kevin was actually seen in 2 movies. You can see it in the background of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and also in 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. But despite all of that, he was never found. This mysterious man at the bus stop with the black dog was never found. In 2013, the San Francisco Police Department said that they had a very viable suspect in mind. This man, Wayne Jackson, whose house was just 1 block away from the school Kevin was last seen at. He was also a convicted pedophile. He also had a black dog at the time. He was questioned in 1984 when this happened, but nothing came from it. He died in 2008. They even dug up property where he used to live, but they came up with nothing. And now, sadly, there's a very good chance he'll never be found. If alive, he may look like this. 1 minute, he's sitting outside of a bar. The next, he has somehow fallen off the face of the earth. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Bradley P. Olsen. Viewer discretion is advised. Bradley was a 26-year-old father of 1 living in DeKalb, Illinois, here in this house with his parents. In the very late hours of January 19th, 2007, Bradley had gone to a bar with some friends. The location was called Bar 1, but from what I can tell, it's since been sold and is no longer that bar. Now, he had gotten a ride there with his friends, but his friends had left earlier in the evening from the bar. Now into the early morning hours of January 20th, 2007, at approximately 2:25 a.m., Bradley, who is intoxicated, is standing outside of Bar 1. He is on his cell phone trying to text and call people to see if he could get a ride from someone, which is the responsible thing to do. But shortly after 2:30 a.m., his phone just suddenly goes dead. And from that moment, Bradley is never seen or heard from again. That evening, Bradley was wearing a leather jacket, something similar to this, and he was wearing a pair of boots that looked exactly like this one. The temperatures that night were around 0 degrees, so it was freezing. His parents normally would have been available to pick him up that night, but they were actually on vacation in Florida at the time. Bradley's vehicle was still parked outside of the family's home. And as a matter of fact, everything was there. His clothes, his wallet, keys to his vehicle, all at the house. Ever since that night, his bank account has been dormant. His cell phone has had zero activity. He also left behind a daughter that he loved dearly and would never just leave her like this. Bradley's parents arrived home on January 24th, and they reported him missing once they realized that he had been gone. Police canvassed the entire area. They have searched through ponds, they have searched through fields, just seeing if maybe, a combination of him being drunk and in freezing cold weather, maybe something happened where he just died from the elements. But his body has never been found. And they've dragged the ponds and nearby water sources and nothing. The police questioned the friends that he went to the bar with. They questioned people who were at the bar, the bouncers, the bartenders. People have taken polygraph tests. They've all passed. And there have been no witnesses to anything. The family has offered a $50,000 reward, and no one has come forward. It is literally as if he just vanished into thin air. If you have information, please contact this number. In a matter of 20 seconds, a young boy would disappear from his grandmother's backyard, never to be seen again. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Dylan Ehler. Viewer discretion is advised. Dylan was born on April 16th, 2017 in Truro, which is in Nova Scotia, Canada. His parents are Ashley Brown and Jason Ehler. From what I understand, at the time of this case, the two of them weren't a couple, but were, sharing custody of the young boy. On the afternoon of May 6th, 2020, Dylan was dropped off at his grandmother's house by his mother, Ashley. Ashley had some errands to run that afternoon. Now, according to the grandmother, herself and Dylan were in the backyard along with the grandmother's dog. Then she went to go take the dog and tie it up to its leash, and she had her back turned for, she says, between 18 to 20 seconds. And when she turned around, her 3-year-old grandson, Dylan, was gone. The grandma then notified Ashley and Jason, and then also the police. The police call was made at 1:24 p.m. that afternoon. And according to the family, it took police 2 hours and 21 minutes to fully deploy a search team. And also, a public alert about the missing boy was not put out until 3 hours and 8 minutes after the police were called. Now, I don't want to make any speculation, so this is all just what's coming from the family. That they believe that police basically were very, very slow to get this search started. They also felt the police did not treat this as a criminal investigation or as if any foul play was involved. They were just treating it like a search and rescue. There was a brook nearby the grandmother's house, and 6 hours after Dylan disappeared, they found something. They found Dylan's rubber boots floating in the water, but no other articles of his clothing, and Dylan was nowhere. The brook where the boots were found would lead into the Salmon River and then out to the Bay of Fundy. So they did search the river very, very thoroughly, as well as the brook and as well as the bay. But no sign of the 3-year-old boy has ever been found. They also did a thorough investigation of the grandmother's backyard. They questioned people in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, the family, especially Ashley and Jason, were harassed a lot. People were screaming at them, calling them baby killers. The public was accusing them of doing something to Dylan, even though the two of them weren't even nearby when Dylan disappeared. The public also made accusations against the grandmother. The grandmother thinks someone kidnapped Dylan, but the police have no proof of that. And to this very day, Dylan is still missing. If you have information,